Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons Insurance for motoring enthusiasts, Hare and Forbes Machinery House, Pace Farm, Hero Hoists, and Martin's Panel Masters. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the amazing 2018 AACA National Meet here in Hershey, Pennsylvania. On today's show, you're about to see some of the classic cars that turn up to this incredible event. This is Hershey, the epitome of excellence, and if you win a trophy here, that's bigger than a Whopper burger with everything piled on it. It's an early start here at the Hershey Park Showfield, and as the classics arrive, watching them is entertainment in itself as a starter to the main meal, if you like. There's vehicles here of all makes, models, colours and style, most dripping in chrome. It's time now to get around and see a little more of the cars and the temporary custodians that turned up to this pinnacle event for 2018. And as we make our way through the 2018 AACA National Meet here in Hershey, it's time for Dick. How are you, sir?
Very good, Fletch. How are you?
Good, thank you. Enjoying your coffee?
Excellent. A little cold out here today.
Absolutely. We did have a cold start. It didn't stop numbers here today, though. The show field here is filling up. It's just a sea of chrome and colours and shapes. It's very special to be a part of it, and you certainly are. Now, I've always said that Buick build a great car. I've always believed that. You have got a 1964 Buick here, which is absolutely sensational in terms of restoration, attention to detail, the items. Now, the first thing, Dick, with this particular car is the amount of options that this car has come with. How would you like to share some of those with us?
Well, part of the reason for that was the car was built as a pre-production car. It's very early. It was built in July of '63 for the owner of a dealership in Portland, Oregon. So he had it built for himself. So consequently, there were 8 different options and accessories that were available on the car. And he decided he would have pretty much all of them since he was doing it for himself. And he was also going to be able to utilize that in his showroom to show people what all was involved. So my task the last 2 years, after we did all the major things with the chrome and the frame-up restoration of the car, was to get all the accessories back in place and working again. And we've managed to do that. I've got 35 different things on there that all work, and that's a lot of the fun too.
See, our late model cars of today, we take all these accessories and options for granted. Cars today that come standard with a lot of these features. We're talking 1964 here, and of course the United States of America built these cars with these features which were unsurpassed in many ways. For example, you've got the inside styling where I must admit, looking at that back seat and seeing that small console there, that looks like something out of the Thunderbirds.
Well, the designer of this one was Bill Mitchell, which is in the Designing Hall of Fame. He's known for a number of the cars he designed. He felt this was the finest design he ever did.
That's a big call on a world scale, even from that time.
And a production car.
Sure. You know. Now, let's look at that in terms of the power. Now, we've got the Wildcat 465 on the air cleaner. Now, Buick didn't actually do 465 cubes, but that, in fact, is the foot-pounds of torque.
That's correct, yes. The cubic inches is 325, and the horsepower on this was about 340. Yeah. And if you put the second 4-barrel carburetor on, you get the horsepower up to about, I think it was 360.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Now, that equates to around about 240 kilowatts in today's terms. So even a car these days, brand new, out of the showroom with 240 kilowatts is no slouch. I mean, that's a car that really can get up and boogie when it wants to. Mm-hmm. Back to these features, Dick. The retractable light, the trouble light.
Yeah, there's two. We have two of those, or 2 accessories he put on. They actually have 24 foot of retractable wire, and they stay lit. They have a mercury switch, but they self-grounded. So you have a problem, a flat tire, it pops off from under the hood and you can reach all four wheels.
Little things too, Dick, to complement this fine motor car. Umbrella, tissue dispenser, a list of options there on the back side glass there. That's extraordinary.
Well, part of their thinking, I think they made a little nod to the wife so the gentleman could get his 460 Wildcat. So they had what they call the vanity set, and that consisted of the, as you mentioned, the tissue box, and then there was also what they called the purse hook. That's mounted on the dash, and it's for the lady to hang her purse on. And in the handbook for the car, it says if the lady agrees, the gentleman can put his sunglasses there. So that's what I utilize it for. But that kind of thinking is promotional again. But
what a balance of terms.
Yeah.
Time to look out back in the trunk. Beautiful there. The trunk mat, now I think, with reading the list, was it $4.95, I think, payable in the day to get the trunk mat?
Again, I've tried to make an effort, what they call that, the Mahoney sticker, which I think was Senator Mahoney in the 50s made that the factory should have a sticker on the car showing what the actual prices were, the individual options. So in reproducing it, I got all the correct codes and numbers and prices.
We're talking in terms of 1964 too, of just over $6,000 in total, American dollars, in that time for this car. That's an expensive car. Now, I guess, yeah, absolutely.
Back then, you get a very nice car for $2,000.
Dick, thank you so much. I wanted to start today's episode with your Buick. It is sensational, and with all due respects to your car, you don't have to look far to see cars very similar. Wow, the quality here today is amazing.
This is amazing. This is really, it's special to come here every year.
Dick, it's a credit to you. Well done.
Thank you, Fletch. It was a real pleasure to do this.
Thank you very much.
My passion for cars began when Nana and Pop bought their new Toyota Crown. It was Nana's, really. She loved that car. We went everywhere in it. My passion now is just the same, even though my cars are a little different. I've still got Nana's car, couldn't part with it. And I reckon if she was here today, she'd be insured with Shannons too.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
In 2019, why not consider a Detroit tour with Fletch? Detroit, the automotive epicenter. It will leave you gobsmacked. Imagine experiencing where automotive history on a grand scale began. Stay in fine accommodation, taking in some of the best museums and private car collections on the planet. Book your 2019 Detroit tour with Fletch. 1300 146 392. Hare & Forbes Machinery House has been family owned and operated for over 85 years, and it's easy to see why. Planning on welding? Look at these welding tables and clamps, air compressors and different air tools, sandblasting cabinets, through to spray guns. Everyone is welcome at Machinery House. There are competitive freight rates around Australia, and you can buy online at machineryhouse.com.au. So remember, Hare & Forbes has the range. How would you like to double your garage space and work on your cars easily? Well, bring in your own hero with a Lift King hoist. Easy to install models in 1, 2 and 4 post styles. Check the very nifty Spider 2500 portable mini scissor lift. Hero hoists are either Oz certified or carry the Euro CE, your guarantee of quality construction and reliability. I regularly stand under my Lift King, so when you need a bit of a lift, why don't you go stand under yours? Moving through now. Time for Jerry. How you doing?
Real good, Fletch. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. 1962 Thunderbird. Now, when you told me a 62, I was a little surprised. It seems later than that because this car just seems so advanced.
Oh, it has a lot to do with the styling on the car. They really put a lot of thought into the engineering and the styling on the Thunderbirds.
Now, being a Thunderbird aficionado as you are, you have done painstakingly this restoration. Mm-hmm. Now, what was it like before you started the job?
Well, this car had been sitting since 1972. Been sitting for 45 years, abandoned more or less in a garage, forgotten for the most part. I discovered the car about a year and a half ago, and decided it was a good candidate for restoration and rescue.
And you basically spent full time on it to get it to where it is now?
Yeah, pretty much it was a second full-time job working on this, yes.
Now, starting at the engine bay, we look over there, 3 2-barrel carbs across the top there. Sensational work. Gorgeous oval air cleaner, just capping that off. The radiator header tank, chromed, beautiful attention there to detail with new hoses. We look over to the windscreen washer bag there with the Ford logo. The hinges, anodized, insulation under the hood. We just keep on going here.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail goes into these cars, yeah. And that's my passion. I enjoy bringing these cars back to the way they were originally intended to be. And this, like I said, this was a good candidate with the equipment and the quality of the car to start with.
Okay, cubes-wise, what are we talking about with the engine?
It's a 390 block. The car actually was born as a 394-barrel car, and the 6-barrel was actually a dealer installed option on this. It could be ordered from the factory, which would be in the M-code cars, or it could be added from the dealership. This car actually was built.
So even in 1962?
Yeah, the 3 deuce option was actually available from January 1962 to January 63, 1 year only. This car was actually built in December of 61, 1 month prior to the availability from the factory. So whoever bought the car brought it back to the dealership when that option was available and had it added.
We run our eye up the side profile of this car. One thing about Thunderbird, I love that stainless, that bright work that starts in front, runs right up over the fender, through the door and out to the back fin. But not only does it do that, as it goes across the top of the driver's door, it also acts as part of the door handle. I think that is such a cool feature.
Yeah, that's part of the styling, the integrated door handle into the door trim, yes.
Now we're talking 62, we're talking Thunderbird, Thunderbird's TV show. No matter how you look at this styling of this car, it's rocket inspired, it's space engineered almost, but when you look at the interior and see the back come up and mold itself over those front seats, that vinyl work there, and obviously being a convertible as well, what a gorgeous arrangement you've got going on there.
Oh yeah, it's this car has the roadster tonneau on it, so it adds to the body line even more. It makes it actually into a 2-seater. There's still a rear seat there, but it's covered under the tonneau, and they kind of brought back the 2-seat Thunderbird concept from 55 to 57. A lot of people were kind of disappointed when they went to 4 seats, and this was kind of a reversion back to the 2-seat design.
I like the shape of the dash on the Thunderbird. It's very swept. I mean, we look at similar cars. We look at the Buick, where the dash comes down and meets the console in a similar fashion, but it's more straight cut. Thunderbird very swept, and they kept that for so long, that design, didn't they? Yeah,
that was kind of one of the keynote parts of the Thunderbird was the console and the bucket seats. Yeah, that was from 1958 when they went to the 4-seat right on through 1965 and beyond. The bucket seat console concept was part of the Thunderbird mystique.
Awesome stuff. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to say about this tremendous car that you have, Jerry?
Well, not much. It kind of speaks for itself. It's been a labor of love. I enjoy putting these cars back to the way they were originally, and I was real pleased with the way this one turned out, and it's as nice underneath as it is on the top.
Well, thank you very much, Jerry. Pleasure catching up, and thanks for bringing this gorgeous car along to Hershey. Well done.
Okay. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
There's no question. If you own a classic, it needs to be with Shannons. And if you have anything to do with a classic bike, a classic car, or a classic truck club, make sure it's listed with the Shannons Club for all the world to see. For more information, visit shannons.com.au. Dominic, how are you today?
Very good, Fletch. And you?
Good, thank you. Love your Mercedes here. We're talking 1970, a 300 SEL. The thing that I love about it, I love my V8s, is to see that 6.3 sitting under there, dual overhead cam.
Yes, that's a very highly limited edition car. They only made 6,500 plus. We think there's probably about 300 left. And this particular car was owned by Graham Nash of Crosby Stills Nash fame, and the car came from Texas. I personally restore antique and classic cars for 50 years. This is what I do. And it took me 3 years to redo this car. It was not in the condition that you see it at, but this is the kind of work that I do. But the best part of it is the car, as I said, was owned by Graham Nash of Crosby Stills Nash fame. At the time, I didn't know that. After I purchased it, I asked the collector who bought 15 cars at the time, and he was not interested in this car. I said, by the way, who was the famous rock musician you advertised? And then he said, Graham Nash. And so according to my research, the VIN number, color code, articles that he has published himself, and stories, it is Graham Nash's car.
I think what is really unique too is that the rock star wrote the book, and with highlighter pen with a permanent marker, you've emphasised a paragraph on the page there where he's talking about this car.
Yes, in 2013 he wrote a book called Wild Tales, and he tells about his lifestyle as a rock star back in the day, which I can only imagine what fun he had. But this was his first car. When I first got the car did not run. The car the air suspension was down. The upholstery was shot. It was all ripped. The body, the paint was absolutely cracked. I really completely took the car apart and painstakingly restored it in 3 years.
The paintwork is beautiful too, Dominic. It's just so smooth, very a very rich paint. It's a lovely car, it really is. Having that 300 horsepower, dual overhead cam V8 sitting under the hood really, I think, tops this car off.
Yes, it's a very powerful car.
Now, Dominic, I'd like to thank you for your time on this very special episode of Classic Restos here at the 2018 AACA National Meet with this extraordinary Benz. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fletcher. I appreciate you stopping also.
That's okay. Thank you.
Every weekend around Australia, motoring enthusiasts get together to share their passion for cars and bikes. It's a passion that brings us together. All sorts of people, all sorts of cars and bikes, from the classics of today to the classics of tomorrow. At Shannons, we understand enthusiasts, so when it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
In 2019, why not consider a Detroit tour with Fletch? Detroit, the automotive epicenter. It will leave you gobsmacked. Imagine experiencing where automotive history on a grand scale began. Stay in fine accommodation, taking in some of the best museums and private car collections on the planet. Book your 2019 Detroit tour with Fletch. 1300 146 392. If you have a restoration project, Hare and Forbes has the tools that you need. Shrinker stretchers, dollies, mallets, bead rollers, profile gauges, professional panel restoration kits, and so much more. Now I warn you, enter at your own risk because you will end up buying something. So come along to your Cap City store or browse and buy online at machineryhouse.com.au because Hare and Forbes has the range. Martin's Panel Masters has 3 modern accident repair centres. They service Melbourne's inner, outer east and the fast-growing southeast corridor. Your vehicle will receive the best from state-of-the-art repair equipment finished beautifully from computer-based paint mixing systems, finished in Australian compliant spray booths. Martin's Panel Masters, located at Ferntree Gully and Berwick, also Box Hill Panels. Okay, time now for possibly one of the most sophisticated cars here on the paddock. How are you, Chris?
Fine, Fletch. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. What do we say here? We got matching apparel with the colour of the car, which happens to be a 1957 dual gear. Now, you're going to have to educate me here, Chris. What can you tell us about this incredible machine?
Well, dual gear, they were actually built by Dual Motors, which was 1957. About 100 of them were built. There was a joint venture between the House of Ghia in Italy for the bodies and Dodge Corporation, which was the engine drivetrain. So they were selectively put together, and 100 were, built, and Mr. Casserole actually selected who he sold them to as well. So
The epitome of style and the type of people that used to buy these cars, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, and of course it's nice to see the Hemi up front as well. They were a pinnacle engine of the time. It's good that Dodge got the gig, so to speak.
yes, that's correct. I mean, it was a joint venture, as I mentioned, and it was kind of a limited production and short-lived. And the design itself with the Italian Ghia, House of Ghia, really sets off a real look.
I think by looking at it, the styling is, I mean, you could see a little bit of Studebaker in the body design, can't you?
Right. I mean, you can see even in the the 50s with the beginning of fins in the back and the rolling of the side panels. Yes. You can get some level of what true design, especially when you get a color that shows off some of this as exceptional, especially in the light of day.
Now, Chris, on the show of Classic Restos, I really never go down the path of value or talk about money about cars because, hey, it's a hobby and of course. But in a case like this, what would something like this be roughly worth, even approximately?
Well, I know one went for auction 2 years ago, I believe, and it was just under $500,000. So that's really all I know. This is insured for a little bit north of that, but...
Chris, it's been such a pleasure to catch up with you, the temporary custodian of such a vehicle. And this trip to the United States again, I've got Mark from Shannons, and Mark actually pointed the car out to me. Here at Hershey, here on the field, there is just so much chrome, so much colour. Mm-hmm. Cars can actually get lost in the mix. Right. But I'm just so pleased that we found your car down the end of this row here. And Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
That's okay. Bill, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much, Fletch. And yourself?
Good, thank you. Good. I thought a nice way to end today, I mean, you could really just... It gets back to the quality here. It's everywhere. But a 1911 Mercer, original car, never been restored, well, probably not in the last 50 or 60 years anyway. What can you tell us about it?
We ran it we invited out to Indianapolis for the 100th anniversary because our Mercer ran out there. We drove it around the track. We had little leather helmets on and we put goggles on and we had a very good time. Wow. Stupid little smile on your face as you did it. The car runs very well. It's only has brakes in the back axle, so as far as stopping is another big issue with these things, but other than that, things run extremely well. They can do 50 miles an hour with no problem.
Does it feel fast at 50 miles an hour? I bet it does.
Oh yeah. Well, before, to make it period correct for the Indianapolis, we have removed the fenders, the lights, the running boards, so you had open wheels and just had a very good time there. We took it to a couple Grand Prix that they were just open wheel cars. It's about 300 cubic inch, maybe 50 horsepower, if that.
So, Bill, is it fun to drive, or is it like wrestling an alligator?
No, this is extremely a lot of fun there. Unfortunately, the seats, they were little people, and I'm not exactly a little person. It's all Armstrong steering. You just no power steering of any nature there, but once you get it rolling, it's just a lot of fun. It's a very enjoyable car to drive.
So how many gears forward, Bill?
Yeah, 3 speeds forward, 1 reverse. This 11, the 13 came out with a 4-speed in it. A little bit faster, a little different front end on it there, but they're over a lot more fun to drive.
Interesting too, the Mercer people, the Mercer company that built these cars were actually killed on the Titanic.
One of them was, yes. There is a car in the bottom of the ocean there on the Titanic, still there. The company originally started making wire rope. They made the wire rope for the Brooklyn Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, quite a few other things there. And one of the sons ventured out and he wanted to make race cars. Apparently didn't want to go into the family business. And so hence they started building race cars around there. And they made a couple touring cars, but most of their pride and joys were all the racebouts there.
Bill, from a mechanical standpoint, I guess it's like anything, once you know your way around these things, I guess it becomes easy, but relatively, is it not too hard to work on?
No, it's very easy to work on. The fact that the technology of the era was very good, and you look at the craftsmanship and the way it was designed, it's phenomenal. I mean, you didn't do it with computers, you didn't do it with everything else there. These were craftsmen of the era doing this stuff.
Bill, what can I say? Once again, one of these guys that you could sit for hours and talk to over here in the United States. Bill, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Fletch, I'm very happy to meet you, and I hope you guys have a nice trip back to Australia there.
Thanks, mate. Good on you. Well done.
Take care.
Well, I hope you've really enjoyed this week's episode of Classic Restos, the 2018 AACA National Meet here at the gorgeous Hershey Park, and you've seen it first on Classic Restos. As I say at the end of every episode, no matter where you're watching the show from, until next week, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ClassicRestosTV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons Insurance for motoring enthusiasts, Hare and Forbes Machinery House, Pace Farm, Hero Hoists, and Martin's Panel Masters.